Welcome to our deep dive into multicultural leadership. Going beyond just the surface
hmm
and really getting into what it takes to lead effectively in diverse cultural contexts. We've got a really fascinating mix of materials to explore here. We've got some personal stories from missionaries who spent a significant amount of time in Indonesia. We've got some insights from leadership training, and we've even got some academic research on cultural intelligence.
Yeah, it's really that blend of real world experience with the academic grounding that I find so compelling because we can see how these theories actually play out in the lives of individuals who are grappling with these cultural differences and leadership challenges.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this takes us. I'm always up for a good story and some practical takeaways.
hmm
I think our goal today is to equip you with the insights and the tools that you need to not just survive but thrive in these multicultural settings.
Mm.
Imagine fostering innovation within teams,
Hmm.
leading with cultural sensitivity,
Yeah.
and maximizing the potential that diversity brings to your work. That's what we're after today.
I think a helpful framework for understanding cultural dynamics, especially within organizations, is the iceberg model.
Okay, so let's unpack this iceberg model. I'm intrigued.
Okay, so think about it this way. If you're asking for directions in Nepal, you might think it's a pretty simple interaction, but it often reveals hidden cultural nuances that can really easily trip you up. You might ask someone how far to the next village and expect a clear-cut answer in terms of, miles or a time estimate, but instead of a distance in miles or kilometers or a time estimate, you might just get a vague response, like not far, along with a gesture. You think, great, thanks, and then hours later you realize that not far can be a very relative term.
Yeah, but that makes me think of all the times I've misinterpreted things based on my own cultural assumptions. It's so easy to just take things at face value and not realize that there's a whole lot more going on beneath the surface.
Exactly. And that's precisely what the iceberg model helps us grasp. Just like an iceberg, what we see on the surface, the
Yes, ma'am.
behaviors, the language, the symbols, that's just the tip. Below the waterline are the often invisible but powerful forces driving those behaviors. Things like beliefs, values,
Yeah.
principles.
So if we really want to lead effectively in these multicultural environments, we can't just focus on the surface stuff. We need to understand those deeper cultural currents.
Right, absolutely. It's not enough to simply adapt to outward behaviors. To truly connect and lead with cultural sensitivity, we need to grasp those underlying values and beliefs that are shaping those behaviors.
And this is especially important when we consider a country like Indonesia.
Yeah.
It's a place of incredible cultural richness with over 800 ethnic groups and something like 1,500 to 2,000 language dialects. I mean, think
Mhm.
about this. The island of Java is smaller than California, but it has more people than the entire United States.
Wow, that's mind-blowing. That just highlights why it's so crucial to avoid making sweeping generalizations about a culture as diverse as Indonesia.
Mhm.
Each group, each individual brings their own unique set of values and perspectives to the table.
Yeah, and speaking of individual experiences, our sources shared some incredible stories from missionaries who have been living and working in Indonesia.
hmm
One that really struck me was Ria's story. She initially resisted moving to AC because of some painful experiences that she associated with that region.
Yeah. But what's so powerful about her story is the transformation that she underwent.
Mhm.
She wrestled with those difficult emotions and ultimately chose to embrace forgiveness and
Yeah,
obedience. And that led her to a place of healing and deeper understanding.
and her journey didn't stop there.
Wow.
She wanted to attend a discipleship training school, but didn't know any English. She basically said to God, "If you want me to go, you provide the resources, and that includes the language."
It's almost like something out of a movie. She received a plane ticket and tuition money from, of all people, Muslims, and then she realized she couldn't understand a word in class. So she just had to lean hard on her faith,
Yeah.
trusting God to provide the ability to learn English.
While Ria's experience is truly extraordinary, her story, I think, underscores the importance of being prepared for cultural challenges. And that's where developing cultural intelligence, or CQ, becomes incredibly valuable for anyone navigating diverse cultural contexts.
Yeah, CQ is about so much more than just knowing facts about different cultures. It's about having the skills and mindset to understand different communication styles, values, and behaviors, and then being able to adapt and interact effectively.
So it's not about becoming an expert in every culture, but rather about becoming an expert in bridging cultural gaps and building meaningful connections.
Exactly. Our sources break down CQ into four key components: motivational, cognitive, metacognitive, and behavioral. It's a fascinating framework.
Okay, so break that down for me. What does that look like in real life?
Well, the motivational component is all about your intrinsic desire to learn about other cultures. Cognitive CQ refers to your knowledge of cultural differences. Metacognitive CQ focuses on your self-awareness in cross-cultural interactions, basically how well you understand your own cultural biases and how they might be impacting your perceptions.
I can see how that self-awareness piece is so important. It's
Yeah.
it's hard to bridge differences if you're not aware of your own starting point.
Right, and that brings us to behavioral CQ, which is all about putting that knowledge and self-awareness into action. It's about adapting your communication style, your behaviors, your approaches to effectively navigate cultural differences.
I think a lot of people assume that diversity automatically leads to better outcomes. But I'm
Yeah.
starting to see how developing CQ is essential to unlocking the real potential of diverse teams.
You're absolutely right. In fact, research by David Livermore found that diverse teams with high CQ produce over 3 times more innovative ideas than teams that lack that cultural intelligence. It's a powerful testament to the fact that diversity alone isn't enough.
So how can we start to develop our own CQ?
Yeah.
What are some concrete examples of cultural differences that can really impact leadership and teamwork?
One of the most critical areas is communication styles,
Right.
particularly the contrast between direct and indirect communication.
I'm really interested in that. I've definitely experienced some communication mishaps in cross-cultural
Yeah,
settings.
in many Western cultures, direct communication is highly valued.
Yeah.
You say what you mean, and you expect others to do the same. But in many other cultures, like in parts of Indonesia, communication is often more indirect. It's about reading between the lines, understanding the context, and being sensitive to nonverbal cues.
Our sources gave a really interesting example, the meaning of yes in Indonesia. In Western cultures, yes usually signals agreement, but in Indonesia, it might simply be an acknowledgement of what's being said. The true meaning depends on the tone of voice, nonverbal cues, and the overall context.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And this kind of nuance can lead to all sorts of misunderstandings, especially for leaders. Imagine trying to manage a team with members from both direct and indirect communication cultures. It's crucial to create space for both styles to be respected and understood.
And it gets even more complex when you consider the diversity within a country like Indonesia. For example, the Batak people are known for being very direct and straightforward in their communication style.
Yeah, it's amusing. Apparently, there are cross-cultural classes for Batak people who are moving to Java. They learn how to be less direct in their communication. It really underscores the point that cultural intelligence is all about adaptability and flexibility.
This is all so eye-opening. It makes me want to dive even deeper into these cultural nuances and learn more about how to navigate them effectively.
Well, before we move on, there's another major cultural difference that can significantly impact leadership and teamwork: individualism versus collectivism.
Okay, I'm ready to learn more. Fill me in. So you mentioned individualism versus collectivism.
Yeah.
How do those cultural values play out when we're talking about leadership dynamics?
Yeah, it's a huge factor. Individualistic cultures, like many Western societies, tend to prioritize personal opinions, freedom of expression, individual initiative. In contrast, collectivistic cultures, which you often find in parts of Indonesia, emphasize group harmony, responsibility to the community, interdependence.
I could see how those different values would lead to very different leadership styles.
Exactly. In individualistic settings, you'll often see leaders encouraging open debate, empowering individuals to take initiative. But in collectivistic cultures, leaders might focus more on building consensus, fostering harmony within the group, making decisions that benefit the collective good, rather than just individual interests.
So if you're leading a team in a collectivistic culture, you, you might not want to just rush into a decision. It's about taking the time to gather input from everyone and ensuring that the team feels unified.
Precisely. And that might mean slowing down the decision-making process to allow for more group discussion and consensus building. For leaders coming from individualistic cultures, this can sometimes feel frustrating or inefficient, but it's essential to understand that these cultural differences are deeply rooted in values.
It seems like patience and adaptability are crucial for leaders working in multicultural settings.
Absolutely. And if we connect this back to the iceberg model, remember that those surface-level behaviors we observe are often driven by deeper cultural values. So rather than judging or getting frustrated, it's about trying to understand the why behind those behaviors.
I'm also starting to realize that leading effectively in multicultural contexts requires a lot of self-awareness.
You're hitting on a key element of cultural intelligence. It starts with recognizing your own cultural biases and how they might influence your perceptions and interactions. It's about
Mm.
being mindful of your communication style and how it might be received by others from different backgrounds.
I guess it's easy to fall into the trap of assuming that everyone sees the world the same way we do.
It's a common pitfall, and that's why developing cultural intelligence is so crucial.
Huh.
It's about expanding our awareness, challenging our assumptions, and being open to different ways of seeing and doing things.
So how can we practically develop this cultural intelligence? Where do we even begin?
Well, there are several key things you can do. First, cultivate curiosity. Seek out opportunities to learn about different cultures. You can read books, watch documentaries, travel, or even just strike up conversations with people from different backgrounds. The more you expose yourself to diverse perspectives, the more you'll expand your understanding of the world.
That makes me think of that fruit salad analogy we were talking about earlier. The more diverse the fruits, the richer and more interesting the salad becomes.
Exactly. And just as each fruit brings its own unique flavor and texture to the salad, each individual and culture brings its own unique strengths and perspectives to a team or organization.
But sometimes those different fruits might clash. How do we manage that?
That's where skillful leadership comes in. It's about creating an environment where those differences are seen as assets rather than obstacles. A leader with high CQ can facilitate understanding, bridge communication gaps, and create a space where diverse perspectives contribute to a richer, more impactful outcome.
So it's not just about tolerating differences, but actively valuing and leveraging them.
Precisely. And that brings us to another crucial element of cultural intelligence, empathy.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about the importance of empathy in leadership, but I'm curious to hear your perspective on it.
Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. In a multicultural context, it means being sensitive to the needs, values, and communication styles of those from different cultural backgrounds. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels heard, respected, and valued.
It sounds like empathy is not just a nice to have, but a strategic advantage for leaders.
You're absolutely right. When we lead with empathy, we build stronger relationships, foster trust, and create more effective and collaborative teams. People are more likely to feel motivated and engaged when they feel understood and appreciated.
So how do we actually cultivate empathy? Is it something we're born with, or can we develop it?
While some people may be naturally more empathetic, it's definitely a skill that can be cultivated. And it starts with active listening.
Active listening. I think I need a refresher on that.
Active listening is about going beyond simply hearing words. It's about truly paying attention to what the other person is saying, both verbally and non-verbally. It's about listening to understand, not just to respond.
So it's about being present in the conversation, asking clarifying questions, and really trying to grasp the other person's perspective.
Exactly. And it also means being aware of your own biases and assumptions that might be coloring your interpretation. Active listening requires patience and a genuine desire to learn from others.
It sounds like active listening goes hand in hand with another key aspect of cultural intelligence flexibility.
You've got it. In multicultural environments, things rarely go exactly according to plan. You're bound to encounter unexpected challenges, communication breakdowns, and differing opinions.
Flexibility is about being able to adapt to those changing circumstances.
You're right. It's about adjusting your communication style, finding creative solutions that work for everyone, and being willing to compromise.
Yeah, I can see how that can be challenging,
Yeah.
especially for leaders who are used to being in control. It requires a certain level of humility and a willingness to let go of the need to be right all the time.
And that's a crucial point. A leader who is rigid and inflexible will struggle to navigate the complexities of diverse teams.
So how can all of this be applied by our listener? How can we all become more culturally intelligent leaders? Regardless of our backgrounds or current roles, wow, it really feels like we've unpacked so much about leading in multicultural settings, everything from the iceberg model to the importance of empathy and flexibility. It's a lot to take in, but I'm already feeling more equipped to navigate these these complexities.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. It's all about building awareness and developing the skills to create more inclusive and collaborative environments. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to a concept that we touched on earlier, the idea of legacy.
Right. You're talking about the comparison between Moses and Joseph.
Exactly. Even though they both held these leadership positions, they left very different legacies. Moses, despite his early missteps, learned to lead with humility and a reliance on something greater than himself. And he left this legacy of freedom for his people. Joseph, on the other hand, became entangled in the allure of power and control, ultimately contributing to a legacy of oppression.
That's a powerful reminder that leadership is not just about achieving goals or advancing our own careers. It's also about the impact we have on others and the kind of world that we're creating through our actions and decisions.
And in today's increasingly interconnected world, that impact extends far beyond our immediate circles. We're all part of a global community, and our leadership, whether it's in our workplaces, our families, our communities, it has these ripple effects that can be felt across cultures and continents.
So how do we ensure that we're building a legacy that we can be proud of? A legacy that contributes to a more just and equitable world?
Well, I believe cultural intelligence is at the heart of this. When we cultivate CQ, we become more than just effective leaders. We become bridge builders, connecting across differences and creating a more harmonious and productive world.
Yeah, it's about shifting our mindset from one of us versus them to one of we, recognizing and valuing the unique contributions that each culture and individual bring to the table.
Think back to that fruit salad analogy.
Right.
It's the variety of flavors and textures that make it so delicious. We wouldn't want a fruit salad with only one type of fruit, would we?
Definitely not.
And just like we appreciate the diversity in a fruit salad, we need to embrace the diversity of human experience. Each culture, each individual adds something unique and valuable to the mix.
So what are some key takeaways for our listeners as we wrap up this deep dive into multicultural leadership?
First, remember that cultural intelligence is not a destination. It's a journey of continuous learning and growth. Be curious, ask questions, and actively seek out opportunities to expand your understanding of different cultures.
And don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. Engage with people from different backgrounds, try new things, and be open to different ways of seeing the world.
Second, practice empathy. Cultivate active listening skills. Try to understand other perspectives and create an environment where everyone feels safe to share their thoughts and feelings. Third, be adaptable and flexible. Recognize that things won't always go according to plan in multicultural settings. Be willing to adjust your communication style, compromise, and find creative solutions that work for everyone.
Yeah.
And finally, remember the importance of building a positive legacy. Ask yourself, how can you use your leadership to create a more just equitable and harmonious world? How can you contribute to a world where everyone feels valued and respected?
As we conclude this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question. What fruit are you bringing to the table? What unique strengths, skills, and experiences do you have that can contribute to a more flavorful and impactful outcome for your team, your organization, and the world around you?
Thank you for joining us on this journey of exploration. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and practical tools to enhance your own multicultural leadership journey.
Remember, it's not about becoming an expert in every culture, but rather about developing the awareness, the empathy, and the flexibility to navigate cultural differences and build bridges of understanding.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving to make a positive impact.
Thanks for joining us.